If it looks like I'm half awake right now, it's because I am. Rings of Power Season 2 just came out, and I watched all 3 episodes back to back to back. And I can say with confidence, it is probably the most boring show I've ever forced myself to watch through. I'm not ashamed to admit I dozed off a few times in the first 2 episodes. It's impossible not to. It's such an unbelievable, unfathomably boring snooze fest of a production that somehow costs like $1 billion or something. And I even rewound the parts that I slept through because I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything good. Spoiler alert, I didn't. All it did was extend this painful journey for 3 episodes. The third episode though, I hunkered down, muscled through it, like Clockwork Orange style. I peeled my eyelids open so I didn't fall asleep and caught everything. And it's just so unremarkable in every possible category. Sitting through Rings of Power is like sitting through a Jigglypuff song. You just can't help but fall asleep. It's just so dull. I didn't like Season 1 very much, but I think Season 2 is off to an even more brutally boring start. 98% of these 3 episodes is just 2 characters talking to each other. They're just vomiting sob stories into each other's mouths like it's 2 girls, 1 cup. That is almost every single scene in Season 2. Like, the very first scene of Episode 1, I actually had high hopes for. It was pretty cool. It was a Sauron backstory about the first time he got betrayed when he tried to rise to power. It was cool. They had a bunch of, like, orcs stabbing him and shit, and he was just blowing up with blood, and then he turned into this ooze that reminded me of Ivan Ooze from Power Ranger, but with, like, the properties of Venom. That was cool. And it's all downhill from there. I'm not saying this needs blood, guts, titties, and rock and roll to be interesting or anything. Like, I appreciate shows that are very well written and are extremely dialogue heavy. I don't need, like, a ton of, jingling keys to be entertained. Take, for example, Game of Thrones. There are a lot of times in Game of Thrones where a whole episode is mostly talking. But the difference between that and this is that in Game of Thrones, all of the talking contributes to something. It pushes things forward. It builds the world, if nothing else. It fleshes out characters. It gets you invested in characters or situations. In Rings of Power, it all just feels like filler. It just feels like actual empty calories, like you're just chewing on styrofoam. Every character's conversation is just like this competition for throwing the biggest pity party that does nothing to progress the plot and keeps everything in the exact same place. Nothing moves forward. Nothing really changes until like 1 or 2 events that happen outside of dialogue, which is rare. It's just so worthless. We're 2 seasons deep now, and there's not a single character in the show that I care about. And I really feel like that'll be a sentiment shared by most viewers, because none of the characters have any real depth or any real reason to get invested in them. They don't do anything, really, aside from just talk in circles around each other and get nothing done, and then just get played like a fiddle by Sauron. Sauron is the only character in this show that is actually somewhat interesting and entertaining. Like, any scene that Sauron is in, Sauron is by far the best part of that scene, and it's not even close. So, in Season 2, it's full mask off, and now he's manipulating everyone. He's starting to make the rings, and he's getting Celebrimbor to work with him by, pretending to do... I don't want to get into spoilers, so I'm being very vague here, but he's getting a lot of shit done through manipulation and deceit. But sometimes he's just bad at it and it still works. So, like, there are times where it was a really good plan and he did a great job. I think the actor also does a pretty good job of, like, walking that line of, obviously evil and convincing enough that you can understand why someone would buy into the facade. But there are also some times where, like, he's talking to Durin and he's like, Elrond said that you are the wisest dwarf to have ever lived, actually, and you're super handsome, the biggest cock in all of Middle-earth. Are you not the one that I should trust with this task? Like, the most blatantly obvious lies ever, just like this ridiculous flattery out the wazoo. And Durin picks up on it, and he's like, I don't really trust him, but then still just plays right into the palm of his hands. But overall, I do still think Sauron is doing the best job here in Season 2 of at least having anything happen. Like, at least sometimes when he's convincing people to do shit, like, it's a well-executed scheme. a nefarious plot that was successful. Great. At least something is happening. Because every other character is just, oh god, it's so boring. Like, anytime we cut away from Sauron, it just becomes nap time. It's like the writers were trying to see if they could hypnotize people through really bland dialogue and really uninteresting scenes. And it works. I'll tell you what. It was hard to stay awake for these 3 episodes. Listening to 3 hours of TV static and rain sound effects ASMR would have been more stimulating than Rings of Power Season 2. And don't even get me started on some of the side quests. There's like some side adventures that are going on past the main plot. There's like 6 or 7 different like groups doing different things. And one of them is super not Gandalf guy, the Stranger, and the Harfoots just traveling, just endlessly traveling through sand and heat and complaining about it and trying to help him find a staff, a Gand, as they call it. And it super sucks. I just don't even know why it's there. I mean, I know why it's there. Obviously, Gandalf is going to come from this guy. I'm pretty confident. But I think you could just give me, like, a slide that says, and then the stranger found a staff and became Gandalf. And that would be so much better than making me sit through them just fucking trekking through the desert so long, doing nothing, until he eventually summons a tornado. And then, the end of scene. It throws out the 2 Harfoots. They get caught up in the tornado and he goes, "No!" And that's about it. Other than that, it's just them walking and talking in the desert. There are a couple of moments where there was, like, the start of something that could be cool about to happen, and then it doesn't. So there is a scene with some spiders that I thought, okay, this is kind of hype. And they do get kind of, like, bloody and gory, which is, you know, I mean, that's always at least somewhat exciting. And they have this spider scene that's going on. And then it's just so underwhelming with how it plays out. He basically just stabs the spider, hops on a horse, and leaves, all in the span of like 45 seconds. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I guess that was easy. I thought it was going to be like a big thing. Like, I thought it was going to be like a huge obstacle, because there were like some orcs that were like, oh, don't follow him into there. That's the, you know, the dark forest or some shit. And no one ever comes back alive. I mean, he came back alive like really, really easily. Just gets it with one of these maneuvers, the have at you then, hops on a horse and leaves, saying, bye-bye, I gotta go trauma dump for the next 15 fucking minutes speaking to a wall. I honestly don't know where the budget goes, because it is mostly just 2 characters talking in one location per scene. And it's not that impressive. It's not like they're on the back of fucking griffins talking to each other that look hyper-realistic or anything, where you need like a ton of CGI and shit. Like, they're just talking in some rooms. But that's it. Like, where is all the money going towards? It's not action scenes or anything. It doesn't really seem to be the environment. Because, I mean, we're getting a couple of, like, beautiful shots. Like, of course, there are some, like, really beautiful scenic shots. But there's not a ton of them. Certainly not enough to justify such a crazy budget for this. It seems highly bloated. I don't understand it. So yeah, I'm not really enjoying the first 3 episodes of Season 2 so far. Maybe Episode 4 really picks things up and the rest of the season slaps, but I'm not super optimistic about that. Right now, it seems like we're going to need Sauron to cook up a new Ring of Power here to give viewers the strength to stay awake through the next fucking 5 episodes of this snooze fest of a show. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to let you all know how Season 2 of this show is turning out so far. That's really about it. So yeah. Joker 2 is a bad movie. I'd even go as far as saying it's a horrible film. But I didn't expect it to flop nearly as hard as it currently is. This is pathetic, the numbers it's putting up in the box office right now. This is the Concorde of movies. The studio stands to lose roughly $150 million based on the estimates right now if the projections keep being followed. It is disastrous. I thought no matter how terrible this film was, it would still do well in the box office because it had such a large fan base that I thought would go see it no matter what, just to give it a chance. Nope, that wasn't the case at all. If you needed to escape from authorities and needed a place to lay low, buy a ticket to Joker 2. No one would ever check that auditorium. No one is going there. Those theaters are more empty than the room Squidward goes to be all alone in the void. It's bad. Also, I make that reference with Squidward a lot. That's just something that's always in my noodle. That's probably still one of my favorite scenes in SpongeBob. But anyway, right now, Joker 2 has opened to a $37.8 million box office domestically, which is actually lower than Morbius. What great company to have right there. It has done worse than Morbius so far. Now, globally, Joker 2 has brought in about $114 million, which isn't the smash success they were expecting it to be. That number sounds very high, but with the amount of money they put into it, it's still not doing well at all. And in the domestic box office, it's horrific. They're starting to realize Joker 2 isn't a tragedy, it's a fucking comedy. Everyone is pointing and laughing at this thing. It super sucks. But not only that, Joker 2 Folie à Deux PU, this is the poop that just keeps on stinking, because not only is its box office performance lackluster, it has the lowest cinema score out of any comic book movie ever, at a D. Now, I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke up your butthole pretending that I know everything there is to know about cinema score. This is actually really like one of the few times I've heard of it, so I'm not the most familiar with it, but it's been around for a while and it is a consistent score that pulls moviegoers after seeing a movie just to kind of gauge reactions, and then they assign a grade to it. And prior to Joker 2, the record holder for lowest cinema score for a comic book movie was Fantastic Four from 2015, which had a C-. That movie is still, to date, one of the most hated comic book movies of all time. And now Joker 2 is below that. That's mind-boggling. And they also put it in another perspective here. Borderlands, which I believe is the worst movie of this year, by far, I think it is significantly worse than Joker 2, actually has a D+, meaning that it has a higher score than Joker 2. And Madam Web, which I believe is one of the worst comic book movies of all time, has a C+, so significantly higher than Joker 2. Initially, I just assumed that all cinema scores would skew on the very low side of things, because when people go see a movie that's bad, like a Madam Web, like a Fantastic Four, like a Joker 2, their initial reaction is obviously going to be anger, like, I wasted money on this is absolute dog shit, thus the cinema scores would always be low. But when I saw Madam Web had a C+, I realized that that just wasn't really the case. There are people that go see these objectively dog shit films, and they just have dog shit taste that aligns with it, so they liked it. So Madam Web having a C+, you know? It's not always just going to be the most outraged of people every time. Joker 2 is so universally hated by critics and audience alike that even just gauging moviegoers' experiences, you're getting mostly negative without very many positives. So this movie failed on everything it tried to do. I think one of the main contributing factors for everyone's disgust with the film is how a lot of people went into this not even knowing it was a musical. I knew that going into it because it had been talked about prior, but if you only went in based on the trailers and based on how much you liked the first one, you would be caught completely off guard by this being a fucking musical. The trailers try their best to hide that. Like, there's little hints that there might be some kind of music scene, but there is nothing in the trailers that would have you going into this thinking that you're getting a full-blown fucking Red Alert musical. So a lot of people felt really misled by that, and I imagine that contributed heavily to how much they hated it. Now, I don't agree that Joker 2 Folie à Deux is the worst comic book movie ever. I think that is an absurd claim. There are significantly worse comic book movies, and it is definitely not worse than Borderlands, but I do agree that Joker 2 is the most disappointing movie, most disappointing comic book movie. It is shocking how you'd follow up a movie that was so well regarded, Joker, with this sequel that seemed to really hate the first film. This movie kind of went out on this vendetta to try and undo everything of the first film, and it just sucks. And even if it didn't have that grudge against the first movie and its success, this film on its own two legs is also trash. It's a terrible plot. It's a really messy clusterfuck of a narrative. Like, nothing really works here. The movie ends in the exact same spot that it begins, with pretty much nothing changing and an abrupt death. It is the least satisfying film ever that has nothing redeeming about it, really. Aside from some good performances, and I guess if you really like musicals, there's a couple of songs in there that are just good songs, but even the musicals are lackluster because they don't really tie into the story. It's just unsuccessful with everything that it did, and it did not do much in the first place. I was talking with a buddy of mine about how shit Joker 2 was, and we were just kind of spitballing like what made it so bad and how it even got to that point. And then later he sent me this post from Culture Crave that kind of gives bullet points on how this catastrophe came into existence. So I've heard some of these, but some of them were brand new information. So apparently the idea came to Joaquin Phoenix in a dream. And there's multiple sources that corroborate that little nugget of lunacy. It turns out that it was Phoenix who came up with the idea for the sequel, which came to him in a dream. And he and Phillips brought this idea to former Warner Bros. Chairman Toby Emmerich, according to sources. After one insider was asked who the movie was made for, they responded with 2 words: for Joaquin. That is so silly. I hear that a lot, actually, though. That's a pretty common cliche where if people are asked about something like, how did this come to be? Some people will default to just making up some pretentious nonsense like, oh, it came to me in a dream, actually. I doubt it. I really doubt that. But let's just assume in this case it's real. Joaquin Phoenix had a dream about Joker 2 being a musical. Just keep that a dream, buddy. Like, that's a stupid idea. That's not even something worthy of taking to anyone. That's embarrassing. And what's even more embarrassing is how up his own ass Todd Phillips is that he thought that that was a great decision, and he thought he knew better than everyone else, so he shunned the rest of the department to do his own thing, because he knew better. He had the billion-dollar blockbuster mega-hit Joker. He can do no wrong. So he ran with this stupid idea that came to Phoenix in a dream. They also apparently tossed around another stupid idea about putting it on Broadway before making it into a film. Though I guess admittedly it would have been better on Broadway than in a movie setting, because at least then they could try and make the musicals work and weave it more into the actual plot. But unfortunately we were cursed with this film. Todd Phillips had free reign with Warner Bros. Wanting him to do his thing, and the film had no test screenings. Because why would you test screen this? Todd Phillips knows what you like. Clearly, he's in your fucking walls. He is in your noodle reading your mind. He's delivering that fire that you've been looking for with Joker sequel. Lady Gaga signed on before the script was finished. That one I don't think is that big of a deal. She is a talented actress, so if she signed on because she was excited for the script even though it wasn't done, I don't think it's that surprising or that big of an issue, but I do imagine she might have some regret with agreeing to do this before seeing the final script, because this has become a joke. Next, the new DC boss, James Gunn, had zero involvement, gave notes, but Todd Phillips didn't use them. Used them for toilet paper, I'm sure. I mean, why would you try and give notes to Todd Phillips? I mean, he's got no blemishes on his resume. He knows how to handle a sequel. What could you possibly have notes on for Joker Folie à Deux? It's a fucking masterpiece, clearly. God, I don't know a whole lot about Todd Phillips other than his previous work, but his attitude for this movie is so yucky. It's so embarrassing just reading about him. The film had a budget of $200 million, which included a $20 million salary for Phoenix, $12 million for Lady Gaga. Not surprising, almost every blockbuster that comes out is in like the $100-200 million plus ballpark. I imagine this film in the marketing budget alone adds an additional $200 million to that figure. Musical aspects were largely downplayed in marketing, with director Todd Phillips at first insisting it wasn't one. I don't remember Todd Phillips trying to shut that down or anything, put the kibosh on it. For as long as I can remember, the film, since its official announcement, had always had that knowledge revealed that there was a lot of musical elements to it. So I went in with the impression that this was going to be a musical, and I imagine a lot of others did as well. But again, if you just watch the trailers, it doesn't really come across that way. So perhaps Todd Phillips made that conscious decision to hide that fact, because musicals, I mean, especially for fans of the first Joker movie, probably aren't going to be that enticing for this kind of audience. So I imagine that's probably accurate, but I don't recall Todd Phillips trying to downplay it.
Christopher Nolan reportedly changed the ending of the first movie because it ended with Phoenix's Joker carving a smile. There was no resistance for the sequel with Nolan leaving Warner Bros. That was fascinating to me. So, apparently, Todd Phillips had actually wanted in the first film him to cut the smile into his face. Christopher Nolan was apparently still with Warner Bros. At the time, so he had say-so here and said, "You're a fucking idiot." No, he shut that shit down real quick. But now that Nolan left Warner Bros., Todd Phillips was left to his own devices again and went hog wild, so as all of you know by now, the Joker 2 ends with a completely random psychopath who shanks Joaquin Phoenix's Joker in the hallway where the movie begins, because nothing in this film fucking changes and nothing actually matters in the movie. This random guy abruptly kills him, and then in the background cuts a smile into his face. Just Todd Phillips paying a little disrespect to Nolan here, and the legacy that Nolan built with that Joker. It's such an insulting thing to conclude here, because it's not well done, it comes out of nowhere, and this whole film is garbage in the first place, so it's just an even bigger waste of time. I understand why Nolan would absolutely not want Phillips to do that. It's also just highly unnecessary and doesn't actually tie into anything, so it's super dumb, but since Nolan wasn't at Warner Bros. At the time, Todd Phillips unfortunately got to do it, and we're all worse off for it. This next one had me giggling. Todd Phillips was secluded on a ranch during the opening weekend. I think he was bracing for the storm. I think he knew that this was not going to be received well. It was already not being highly reviewed from the people that had already seen it. So I imagine he had the inkling that, man, maybe he missed the mark. Or I could be totally wrong. Perhaps this is Todd Phillips just under the impression that his high art speaks for itself, and he wants people to come up with their own conclusions based on the nothing burger he served them. So he isolated himself from the rest of society to give us this chance. But more than likely, he just went to the ranch to just go ahead and tune everything out and count all the money Warner Bros. Dumped on his fucking front porch for this absolutely trash sequel. Film was panned by fans and critics. It currently has a 33% from Rotten Tomatoes critics and a 31% audience score. It has the cinema score of D, lowest ever for a comic book film. Domestically opened with $37.8 million, which is lower than comic book films like Morbius and the Marvels, and it needs $450 million globally to break even, which may lose the studio over $150 million, and Warner Bros. Discovery is already in $40 billion of debt. And god damn it, they earned every penny of that debt. Warner Bros. Keeps making the stupidest decisions. I am always surprised to see what new batshit insane idea fucking Zaslav comes up with. Like, every move he makes, he's like the opposite of King Midas, where King Midas would turn things to gold. Zaslav comes around with a cheese touch. He turns everything to actual poop. He is just, I don't know how he even got this position. He is bad at his job. So Warner Bros. Is deep in debt. This is not helping at all. And I just had to talk about it again. You know, Joker 2 is all about musicals and dancing, so you know what, I'll give you one of these. I'll dance on the grave of Joker 2. What a fucking disaster. And it earned it too, man. The movie is bad, the decision making was bad with it, and Warner Bros. Really needs to figure it out, because it is getting embarrassing for that whole company. That's about it. See ya. Don't let the title confuse you. It's still not a good movie, but I don't think it's as bad as everyone is painting it as. I think it's overhated. Just saw Venom 3: The Last Dance. This is the final installment in the Venom trilogy, and it's definitely not going out on a high note. It's not exactly a banger to sail off into the sunset with, but I do think that it's not the pathetic punching bag a lot of people are claiming that it is. I've even seen some people go as far as to say that it's on the same level as like a Madam Web or Morbius. That is ludicrous. You need to be institutionalized for thinking that. It's not a good movie by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't even think it's the worst movie in the Venom trilogy. Not that that's high praise or anything, that's like saying that it's the best piece of corn in someone's poop. Like, keep in mind, I am someone who has been very outspoken about not liking the Venom movies, much to the chagrin of Venom fans. I just think they have been really weak and forgettable. There were certain things I liked about Let There Be Carnage at the time, but I couldn't tell you a single scene in that movie now. It's just like some shit to have on screen to hypnotize you for like an hour and a half while you shove popcorn in your face and you forget about it, but you had a little bit of fun at the time. That's how I feel about the Venom movies. There's nothing special about them. This is probably the most mid-trilogy that has ever been made. It never was, like, terrible, except there was a lot I didn't like about the first one, but it was never, like, awful. But it's never been good or great to me. And Venom 3 is no exception. It's just an okay movie. It's just a average, alright film. So let's get into the things I liked about Venom: The Last Dance. The action. Pretty much just the action, really. And Tom Hardy's performance. I actually think he does a really good job as Eddie. I think he sells it well. He's just working with extremely weak material. Like, I think the writing is trash. I really do think the writing across all three of these movies have just been bad. And I also think Venom, as a character, is strong. I think there is a good performance from Venom 2 if they just had better material to work with. It's just that writing is yikes. It's not good. But the action is. They crushed it with the action in this movie. It was extremely creative. I'm sure you saw a lot of what they were going to be doing from the trailer, like Venom taking over a horse and having a horseback moment. It just gets very creative with all of Venom's abilities and what that makes him and Eddie capable of in a fight. And there's a lot of action in the beginning and the end. The middle is an absolute slog, a chore to get through. It's not interesting. The story is weak, unfortunately. For the finale of this trilogy, I was expecting them to pull out all the stops. This whole thing is just a big fucking stop. Like, I'm gonna have to get into spoilers here. This is my biggest complaint. I'm gonna get into spoilers, fair warning. The story that Last Dance tells is by far the weakest of the entire series. They introduced Null, which everyone was super excited for. I'm unfamiliar with the character, but seems super cool in concept. And when they introduced him at the beginning of the movie, I was like, damn, I can't wait to see what this guy's capable of. We've got like a really interesting big bad villain. And then Null may as well just not exist in the movie. It is the biggest bait and switch. Null is, like, I have more of a role in this movie as a spectator than Null did on screen. He doesn't do shit. He is just trapped. He's just imprisoned. He doesn't even have more than 3 lines and has maybe in total 8 seconds of screen time, and it's just like quick glances, cuts to him briefly. It's such wasted potential. He never enters the movie. Instead, what they fight are his pawns. They fight his fucking minions, his henchmen, his sidekick. Not even his sidekicks. They're not that high up on the totem pole, on the food chain. They just fight his dogs. That is the main enemy they square off against. That's the climactic final fight with his damn bodyguards. That is so lame, especially as a send-off for this franchise, this trilogy. I just could not believe it, because I thought for sure, like, all of this was building to Null. And especially because at the end of the film, they start bringing in so many other symbiotes. They have so many really cool new symbiotes that get introduced right at the end to fight against the pawns. And I thought they'd defeat the pawns in like this really triumphant moment of teamwork. Like, hey, we've got to stop this guy. This guy's, he's bad news. He's a real fucking jerk. And then Null would get free, and then they'd team up to beat him. And it'd be super hype. And it'd be so fitting if that's how Eddie and Venom part, is in that war against Null. That's not the case at all. They just fight the dogs. It's so underwhelming. I just felt so deflated when the credits rolled. Like I mentioned, the action is hype, and having all those symbiotes come into the fold and start fighting against the pawns was very cool, albeit underutilized. They basically had like 5 of the symbiotes throw out one attack to showcase one ability and instantly die to them. Like they got spawn camped. Like they immediately just got fucking blasted the second they decided to start attacking once they were able to. So that was kind of underwhelming, but it was still cool, like as an idea, and visually it was cool to at least see them throw out one attack. And I don't even think like the alien dogs are bad as characters either. They're cool, like they're menacing, they regenerate super fast. And also, I had to check my phone during this film to see if this was R-rated, because I thought it was. I was always under the impression that the original Venom wanted to be R-rated, but then they were a little afraid of how it'd perform in the box office, so then they edited it to be PG-13 or changed things to be more PG-13. And I always was of the belief that it'd be better R-rated. This film has to be probably the hardest PG-13 I've ever seen, because the alien dogs, when they kill someone, and they kill a lot of people, like humans and symbiote alike, they eat them, and it shoots all the blood and guts out the back of their head, like a wood chipper, just spraying blood all over the place. And they show that. They show it. And they actually show gore, too. Like, I was surprised that this was a PG-13 rating. I'm glad they did go hard with the action and violence, because it did help elevate those scenes that were already good and made better by that. But overall, I just found the film to just be mediocre at best again. Just another mid-okay film in this franchise that has only ever been okay. So I guess it's kind of fitting to a certain degree, but man, I just don't understand what, like, the idea here was with having this be the final Venom movie and have him only fight pawns. It makes it seem so small and, like, not powerful. Like, the minions, I know, aren't weak or anything, but they are just pawns. So yeah, I don't think this is a good movie, but I do think it's not as bad as everyone is saying it is. I think if you go see it, you'll probably be entertained for at least 2 out of 3 parts of it, if you can turn your brain off and not think too hard about what you're being told on screen and what you're listening to from the characters. Like, there are some moments that I do think work well between Eddie and Venom. Like, I do think the chemistry has been pretty solid throughout the series for the most part, and where it is here, like, the emotional beats kind of land, and would have if the writing was a bit tighter, but, like, it was close. But yeah, it's not good. That's really about it. It's okay at best. Alright, see ya. I went into Season 2 of Squid Game with pretty low expectations. I was just expecting a lazy cash grab, but it's kind of late for that since it's been 3 years since the first season became a global sensation. And with the way the world moves these days, 3 years may as well be prehistoric. Point is, though, I expected it to just be bad, but it's not. It is actually good. Now, I do need to spoil a little something here. There's no Jim Wool, which is a damn shame. That's a big missed opportunity because Jim Wool is almost synonymous with Squid Game at this point. He is a natural disaster, the devil himself in the Roblox Squid Game circuit, and I really thought that they would tip their hat to Jim Wool in Season 2 here, but they did not. What they did do, though, is not just do the same thing again, which is what I expected. What I really thought Season 2 would be is they just do nothing but games. The same games and then maybe some new games. I just thought it'd just be nothing but games out the wazoo like we're playing fucking Mario Party. But it's not, which was a pleasant surprise. There is a huge emphasis on games. Pretty much anytime some big moment happens, it's part of a game. Like, even when it's them hunting the recruiter down, it ends in a game. So there is a lot of that, and they're all good, and they are different. There is only one return game. So that was nice. I once again expected them just to do the greatest hits again. Now that's what I call Squid Game Volume 2, basically. Fucking Kids Bop Squid Game, the second rodeo. They didn't. That's nice. Now, I don't think Season 2 has a chance of reaching the same heights that Season 1 did. That was lightning in a bottle, in the truest sense of the word. It came out at an unprecedented time where everyone was inside, and there was nothing like this out. Of course, there's still a ton of hype for Season 2, but I don't think it's going to reach that crazy, set the world ablaze popularity that Season 1 had. Though I'm sure it will reignite the Roblox Squid Game circuit, and God rest all the souls that cross paths with Jim Wool. Anyway, though, I do think Season 2 here is good. Very good, even. I went into it expecting it to kind of be dog shitty. Nope, not the case.
So season 2 is much more of like almost a revenge action show than it is a show about survival by any means necessary through these depraved games. Here, we now see a very different Gi-hun, who, I still don't know if I'm saying that name right. I don't remember if it's Ji-hun or Gi-hun. I'm not entirely sure. Sorry if I butchered the pronunciation. But we see him in a totally different way. He even has his own John Wick arsenal. He is using that money that he won, every fucking penny of it, to try and track down the recruiter so he can go to the games and tear it to pieces. Shut it down for good. He no longer has the red hair that we saw at the end of season 1. I suppose the director said, all right, I was playing a bit of a goof on you. We'll get serious again. So that goes away within the first like 3 minutes of episode 1. And we see that he has spent the last 3 years training with the sole focus of stopping these games. So he's really good with guns now, and he is like a very confident leader. So he has people that are searching every subway station every day for 2 years during the summer looking for the recruiter, and he has this network and even gets connections to some military people that will help him try and stop these games. And it's a really cool evolution of the character from season 1 that feels pretty natural with all of the trauma he went through and everything that he experienced. Him being kind of just broken, but so focused on taking that anger out on the people that caused it, is just a really compelling and natural evolution of what we saw from season 1. And the villain here, the front man that we knew from season 1, is so good. He is the perfect counter to our hero. And he plays with that, saying like, so you want to play the hero, I'll show you the consequences, and boy howdy does he ever. I'm not going to get into spoilers for this one. This one is way too fresh to get into spoilers, but I do have a couple of complaints that I won't be able to dive too deep into in a moment. But I do think on the whole, this was much better than I expected and just a really solid season 2 for something that I thought shouldn't have even had a season 2 in the first place. Usually when you have a show like Squid Game, I feel like it's best left as just that, you know, glorious triumph in the moment that it was, instead of trying to overstay its welcome, extending it to a season 2 just because it was popular. It's always lackluster when that happens. In this case, though, I really think it was handled well. It seems very self-aware in what people expected for season 2, and it gives you that, and then some. So, the iconic red light, green light, that's the first game. So, the show brings you in with the same game, making you think, oh, he's just going to be playing the same shit again. And it even has similar characters that were introduced in season 1. We have characters that are very close to them in season 2, but they go in very different directions and serve a very different purpose. So it's a nice spin on character traits that we saw in season 1 and got fed a bit in season 2 that drastically change in the direction they go. For example, one of Ji-hun's friends is in this game again. But not the same kind of friend we saw in season 1. The next thing I want to mention that might be a big spoiler, but I don't think it is because I'm pretty sure it's in the trailers, but just in case there's a spoiler warning. Do you remember how in season 1 the big twist was that the old man that was with Ji-hun for most of the games was actually the man behind the curtain the whole time, the fucking puppet master that put all the games together? Well, season 2 knows that people are expecting some kind of twist like that, and they play with that expectation by putting the front man in the same position the old man was. But they let you know right away that it's the front man, because we saw him in season 1, and in the very first game, we get to see the front man come into the fold. He's playing the game, and we know that he is the big bad, but nobody in the game does. Ji-hun doesn't know. So that's a really fun way of spinning this, where now the viewer knows who this is, but nobody else does. So you're going through these games, and you are watching him participate, and he's playing the games legit. He's not cheating or doing anything shady or underhanded where he's like going off screen and somehow miraculously survives, like we saw in season 1 with the old man. He is like even desperate to survive in some of them. Like, I don't want to get into spoilers on how some of the games go or just spoil what some of the games are, but it really seems like he was putting his life on the line, and that's kind of a theme that they drove home
within the very first episode with the recruiter, where the recruiter plays Russian roulette with Ji-hun, and they play by the rules. No cheating, nothing that's going to get them vac banned, no manipulation or underhanded shady tactics, just all textbook, by the book, rule following. Which I think is just really cool and helps to flesh out the theme of the season even more so. So I thought they executed that really well. Now let's get into some of the things I didn't like all that much. Some of the games I just didn't think were that interesting. In the first season, I don't think all the games were hits either. There was definitely some shits. Like, they weren't all slam dunks. There were some misses. But here, I felt like some of them were just kind of throwaway. As if the stakes weren't even really there. The second game, for example, there is like this big shocking moment where it's not the same game that we saw in Season 1. But the game that replaced it was just like a mishmash of 5 different small games put together. Basically like little party trick games almost. And it just didn't even feel that tense. I didn't get the same feeling watching that, where it's like, oh, the characters are in real peril now. This is going to be a super hard one to accomplish, where there's actual dread on all of the characters for even seeing this game and having to play in it. I just didn't get that, really. The game that followed it, I thought, was better. It was definitely a lot more intense. It was able to build a lot more tension and keep things like fucking, chaotic. But it just felt like the games in Season 2 played almost too much of a background role. I was hoping it wouldn't be the sole focus of Season 2 where it's just the games, but I'm pretty surprised at just how little the games actually play a role in Season 2. It's not a focal point, honestly, which I think is going to be disappointing to a lot of people who just like Squid Game for that, the death games. Season 2 has much more of an emphasis on just plain old simple action. Just some lead spraying, some fights, fucking, like it's more action and more about revenge and trying to stop the games by any means necessary. And that usually comes in the form of a firefight. So the games don't play a huge role here. The next thing I didn't really like is there's an entire subplot with that team that Ji-hun puts together where they are constantly trying to find where he's been taken. And every time it cuts to them, it's like useless. It feels like we're just watching filler because they're not getting any closer to finding him. They're just constantly on this wild goose chase and nothing's really getting accomplished there at all. Now, it does set up a very interesting character that we get introduced to in Season 2 that has some very... it's going to be a spoiler if I get too deep into it. They introduce a character that is clearly going to play a big role in Season 3. That's another thing. Season 2 is basically just a setup for Season 3. I mean, it's more than that, obviously, but everything in Season 2 is building for Season 3. So there is a character that's introduced here in that side plot that is doing some real fishy shit that is definitely going to play a big role in the next part. But just... I can only talk about part 2 because that's what's out. Anytime it cut to them, it was just boring. They were not accomplishing anything at all. It just felt like wasted time. I can pretty much summarize an hour's worth of that side plot with just a few sentences. We need to check this island. This might be where the games are being played. Alright, we checked the island. No good. We'll cross that one off and check the next one. Then they get to the next island. Jeepers, it wasn't that island either. Let's check the next one. That is everything that happens every time they're on screen without fail, and it doesn't really get deeper than that, except for that one character I mentioned that starts to do some more things that are clearly going to be a big deal later on. But as of now, they're not. It's just, try another, try another, try another. Eventually we'll find the island. Try another. And they just go on this deep-sea adventure of just going to fucking island after island after island to no avail. So it's just... it feels just really useless. The other thing I also just didn't like, and this is less about the actual content of Season 2 and more so just this trend with dividing things into parts. Since this is clearly part 1 of 2 parts where Season 2 is really a lot of setup for Season 3,
There are just so many things in here and so many characters that feel highly underutilized with no actual point that they get to in this show that feels like it fits. So they introduce one of the shooters for the Squid Game. We get to see from their perspective, someone who actually kills the contestants in there. We get to see a little about them outside of the game and inside of the game and the things they go through, which is a cool concept and something that's a fun thing to explore because you get to see a different side of it. Even though you did get to see a lot of it in season 1, this is now seeing it from someone who is actively killing the people in the game. And that character we do learn a little bit about, not a ton, but we get a bit, and we see that they're going through some shit while doing this job, but the character doesn't really do anything in the season. It's just, we get like glimpses of a different perspective every now and then. But there's nothing narratively that we get from the character that pushes anything forward or really changes anything. It feels like it's clearly going to matter a lot in season 3, but that's what I'm talking about. When you're just breaking something up into parts, you get things that are half-baked like that. And that just always kind of bothers me a bit. I'm really getting tired of the trend of breaking things in half, because then you only get half of like the whole package that you need to now wait X amount of time for, probably like a year. It just feels disjointed. I'm getting really over that trend. I'd rather just wait for the whole thing to come out. Because usually when you do a season, you know, like a full season, things wrap themselves up and storylines reach some level of closure. Of course, they don't need to be fully finished by any means if you're going for more seasons that are planned. Like, I think Game of Thrones always did a good job before, of course, it absolutely shit the bed with season 7 and 8. But it always did a good job of a whole season feeling like, oh, you got a whole complete package that is going to have more going forward. Whereas in a case like this, you just feel like you got half of the package and you have to wait for the next one to get the whole thing. So that's just starting to bother me a little bit. That's not even like exclusive to Squid Game Season 2 or anything, but you know, it is just getting to be a bit of a nuisance. Like House of the Dragon is the most egregious example, where the most recent season is actually just putting chess pieces on the board and not using them. You have to wait for the next season for those pieces to do anything. So fucking like nothing really moves in Season 2 at all. It's not nearly as bad in Squid Game Season 2 by any means, but there is just obvious things that are just setup pieces that don't actually contribute anything in this season, but will in the next. So it just, again, feels half-baked at the moment. But I know when the whole thing is out, we're going to see the whole vision for it and the role they play. But overall, I do think Season 2 was very solid, much better than I expected it to be. So I definitely do think it's worth watching, and I'm really looking forward to the final season of Squid Game. Assuming, of course, Season 3 is the final season. They might just milk this cow for many, many moons to come. There's probably going to be tons of spin-offs. There's already been one spin-off, too. So they already are showing a track record of having Squid Game as like a flagship IP, but I have to imagine this next season will probably be the last one. I don't even know how they could stretch it further. But anyway, I thought it was good. That's about it. See ya. I've recently been having trouble sleeping. I know. Play a sad song on the world's smallest violin. But today I got tired at 10 o'clock, and I hit the bed by 10:30, and I actually caught some Z's. I haven't gone to sleep at 10:30 since high school. And I snoozed for about 3 hours. Then I couldn't go back to sleep. That's why I don't try to go to bed early. I literally can't, my body gets me up. Now I know you didn't come here to hear me yap about my sleeping trouble, but I gave you a little piece of it regardless. You came here to hear me complain about a movie, and you're not getting that either. I actually didn't hate this film. What film am I talking about? Just realized I didn't even tell you what movie. Hard Eyes. I only saw this because people said it was surprisingly good, and I couldn't believe them, because all the trailers just made it seem like a really generic, shitty slasher film that maybe had a chance at being fun bad, but I thought it was a movie that maybe I'd watch when it hit streaming, and that would be that. But people started to glaze it, and I got curious. I said, let's see what all the fuss is about. What's this hubbub? And hey, walked out of that theater pretty happy. I don't think it's an amazing movie. Far from it. But it's a very self-aware movie. It knows what it is. it's a rom-com slasher, and somehow it works pretty well. It works well as a slasher, and it works well as just like a date movie. A tough balancing act, but it somehow pulls it off really well, and I think it's because the movie's very self-aware. It knows that this isn't unique. You know, a Valentine's Day killing movie, that's not an original concept. It's nothing that someone's gonna be like, whoa, what an interesting blend of genres here. It's been done a million times, you know. What's next? A movie with boobies in it? Who could ever do that? And it's fine. It's unapologetically okay with that fact. So, the slasher part of this film, because the film's kind of two separate things. It's a slasher, and it's also just like a rom-com, which usually would get my eyes rolling, but it does it very well here. So, let's talk about the slasher part of the film first. It's good. A lot of gory, over-the-top, silly kills. It's also a really dumb concept. This killer has heart eyes on his mask, and he's hunting couples on Valentine's Day. Whoa! Holy shit! And that's exactly what happens. Somehow, Hard Eyes is just normal human being that's stabbing people using throwing knives like a Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 kill cams and like a little crossbow type thing. Kind of like what Guts has from Berserk. He has the same shit and he just shoots people with the arrows. It's cool. And it leads to some really fun sequences that are very explosively gory. To a comical degree. Like I said, this movie is very self-aware, so it'll have some kills in here that it knows are stupid. For example, there's a beheading in here that is just like straight out of a cartoon. They get like a blade through their neck, but they're a little off the ground, so then gravity starts yanking on them, and then their head is ripping apart slowly, and it's like spaghetti noodles holding it together as the flesh is ripping. And it's, you know, then the head falls off and lands in their lap. Like, it's very, like, to me, it seems like they were just having fun when coming up with creative kills, and it's, like, again, there's nothing new here. There's no kills you haven't seen before in other films. It's just executed strongly. Now, what really surprised me is that all of the romance dating side of this film actually works. The chemistry between the two main characters is really good, and I really think it's because the dude here, he is like the actual Riz sorcerer. This guy's like the warlock of Wu. Like, this guy was such a smooth talker, he almost had me sucking farts out his butt. So he is like at all times just this Casanova with this girl who's like she's a tough nut to crack. You know, she doesn't like love. She may work in an industry that promotes love, but she herself doesn't believe in it. In fact, she's afraid of it and running from it. And yet this guy, he's trying to get through to her. No, love is great. I'm a hopeless romantic in a world filled with romanced heathens, that kind of thing. And while it sounds cringy, and it is cringy in a lot of instances, it knows that. So it somehow is able to just be cringy in like the right ways, that the romance side of this works so fucking well. Like, this dude is what Redditors used to think they were back in 2012 when they would ask each other for dating advice. It's this guy. And watching it on the big screen, it just like works really well in the context of this film. So I was just never bored when watching the dating side of this film, the actual romance of it. I actually had fun. And the jokes in this movie weren't bad. Like, there was actually a couple times where I giggled, which you would never catch me giggling at a modern rom-com. And this one, it did it. It really, like, it never felt like it was a parody either, which is surprising to me, because that's a very tough thing to, like, skirt the line on, where it becomes so self-aware that it is now a parody of the genre that it's in. It doesn't do that somehow, and that's surprising, because there's a couple times where, like, Hard Eyes is hunting down our two main characters, and they'll make, like, a quip, you know, like a Marvel quip, like, "We're not even dating, can you just go kill somebody else? Jeepers, zoinks!" They don't say the last part, but they do say, like, "Hey, we're not even dating, just can you go kill somebody else?" That kind of thing. And it actually feels in line for these characters, not to the point where it's satirical, it actually just feels like a quirk that they'd have, where they'd say some shit like that in a really intense situation. The movie just does a good job of making you care about these characters and buy into them. So you actually want to see them succeed against the Hard Eye Killer. Now, I praised the movie a lot, but there's some shit in here that just stinks. And I'm gonna get into spoilers. Full warning, I'm gonna get into spoilers. Watch out! Beware! Okay, you've been warned. I really hate
the ending of the film. Not so much like the kills that happen at the end and like the big climax of it. I hate that the film just wants to be Scream again. It wanted to just be Scream really bad, and I got that DNA sprinkled throughout the whole film, because obviously you're going to pick up on the hints of Scream throughout it. You'll definitely get that aroma, but it really does go hog wild on just wanting to be Scream at the very end. When they reveal that there's multiple Hard Eye killers, it's actually a throuple. There's 3 of them, and they're all romantically involved, kind of. One of them was just a big fan of the Hard Eyes killer, so they let him become one. I guess that doesn't make sense, but okay. I just thought that was so weak and stupid. It wasn't even, not even like stupid to the point where it felt sensical in the film. It just felt kind of lazy, you know? And I really hate that the motivation for the killings is a kink. In fact, they say verbatim, "Killing couples is our kink," and then they even put like a fucking Vocaloid on that last word where it goes kink, and it's like, what? Like what? Come on, it can't be that dumb. And it is. It is that dumb. It did subvert my expectations. I thought it was going to be something like, "Had my heart broken, so now I'm breaking hearts, literally," that kind of thing. So I guess, you know, kudos to them for not doing that, but I also don't really like this where it's just a fetish. And it's really weird where, like, one of the Hard Eyes killers is saying to the other Hard Eyes killer, you know, like, "Yeah, it makes us so hot seeing these couples so in love, and then we take their life." And then they're, like, kissing each other, and then she's licking his face going, while they're talking about killing the couples. Like, it's very over the top, which fits in line with the movie, but it just feels like so, like, dumb to the point where, like, it stops being fun, it just starts being dumb. And then he even says some, like, real embarrassing stuff like, "Yes, mommy, I will kill them, mommy. Oh." And he'll, like, even moan sometimes. It's, I don't know. I just thought the ending was really fucking weak. I did not like that. I do like the final showdown with the Hard Eyes couple, throuple, whatever. Like, I think that worked well, but man, it was just, it's so stupid. But it didn't make me, like, hate the film. I don't think it ruined the film by any means, but I feel like you could have done something a little different. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm an outlier in that fact. Maybe people will see that and they'll be like, "Oh, wow, that was crazy. That was amazing. I love that it turned out to just be a weird kink. Yay, yippee." But for me, I just thought, damn, that shit kind of sucks. Another thing I thought that the movie didn't do very well is making the Hard Eyes killer scary. Hard Eyes, throughout this entire film, you could tell was just like a normal person. Not only were they extremely inefficient at their kills, for the most part, like, a lot of it was for the sport of hunting them down, but they were, like, easily overpowered multiple times throughout the movie. Like, from the very beginning, they kind of established that Hard Eyes is kind of like a bumbling buffoon. So, like, when chasing one of the victims, you know, he'd get his hand hit in the door and be like, "Ouch! Ooh!" And he even goes like, "Ah! Ee!" You know, like, actually just getting beaten sometimes. Now, he did ultimately end up killing that person, but still, they never established Hard Eyes as, like, this super strong force, like a very terrifying presence. It was always just a guy with some blades, who's also just not even, like, a good shot with that little crossbow. He misses more times than he hits. He does kill people with it, for sure, but the majority of the time he's not hitting them. And it's also just kind of underwhelming how often Hard Eyes gets beaten in, like, a 1v1. So, like, the girl, when she's getting hunted by Hard Eyes, the main girl, Hard Eyes is about to get her, and she hits him with, like, I forgot, like a trash can or something. He's like, "Ah!" And then he's going again, and then she kicks him, and he's like, "Ooh!" And then, like, starts falling, and then it's on, like, a merry-go-round. And then she kicks him again, and he's like, "Ah!" And then, like, flies away, like, literally ragdolls Hard Eyes. And you're watching Hard Eyes just get, like, tossed around like fucking dirty laundry, and it's like, this is the killer? How has he even been successful at killing people for so many years? He is getting manhandled right now. So, like, I don't think they did a great job of making Hard Eyes like this really, you know, scary, super adept killing machine. It was just kind of like a dude who sometimes successfully kills people, which is fine. again, that's not the biggest deal in the world, but I did want to at least mention that. Overall, the movie was so much better than I expected. Like, I understand why people are praising it. I get it. This is a fun movie. I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it's a great film by any means, but it is like, it's an I wouldn't even call it a bad movie. It's like an enjoyably, like, fun film to sit through if you're willing to just not worry about it being like something new or anything. So yeah, I liked it. I'm surprised I liked it. That's about it. So yeah. Am I the biggest Marvel movie fan in the world? No. But do I go into them with an open mind? No. Not usually. I go in with something like with the expectation that it's probably not going to be good, because I've been conditioned now that Marvel movies, they're not hitting like they used to. So I'll be honest, I go in there and I'm not usually expecting it to be good. The same was kind of the case for the new Captain America movie. I didn't have high expectations. I didn't think it looked bad or anything from the trailers, and I like the previous Captain America movies. So I was hoping that it was going to be surprisingly decent, and I thought Red Hulk looked really cool in the trailers. But the reviews came out and people weren't liking it. I was pretty surprised to see how low of a score it has. It's like the 3rd lowest rated Marvel movie ever made or something, or MCU film. It's crazy. So I went into it, and now that I've finished watching it, I can say it's not the 3rd worst Marvel movie ever made, Marvel MCU movie ever made, but it's not very good either. It's better than the worst movies in the MCU, which isn't, you know, a great achievement or anything, but it's not as bad as people are saying. It's just definitely not good. So I went over it really deeply on stream. I'm just going to play that because when I got home from the movie, I just wanted to unwind and rant about it. So I'll just give you that for my review here. Yeah, here, let's just get into it right away. I've got thoughts. I can't contain them. I gotta let them out. We're pouring the toothpaste out of the tube. I didn't have, like, super high expectations or anything. I thought Red Hulk looked cool. By far, the best part of the movie is Red Hulk. He has maybe 4 minutes of screen time. I'll get in this. I'll give you like a spoiler warning when I get to it, but I'm going to talk broadly. I do not think Captain America: Brave New World is as bad as like the bottom of the barrel, super slop, revolting, putrid trash like Ant-Man and the Wasp, Eternals, Thor: Love and Thunder, Thor 2, Black Widow. I don't think it's down to that level. But it's also just barely over it. It is a movie that is... It feels like it is basically... I'm trying not to get into spoilers right away, but it is basically just a worse version of Winter Soldier. Everything in the movie is things we have already seen in Marvel, like down to the story, just done worse, and with characters that aren't actually superheroes. Like, they're heroes, but they're just people, which is the new Marvel trend, which I get it, and in the film they make a point to talk about it, like, Steve Rogers, he was someone people could believe in, but you're someone people can aspire to, because you're just a man, you don't have a super serum. Like, that's kind of inspiring, okay, but it's really underwhelming when you're telling the same fucking story, but this time without a super soldier. How were the action scenes, though? The action was good. I really like the way the new Captain America fights. I think it's very creative, it's fun, it's versatile. That's solid. I thought they were very solid with that. And having Falcon team up with them, the new Falcon, I think that's solid. They do great there. There's not a lot of them. There's not a ton of action, which is... It's sporadic. Okay, that's fine. But when it's there, it's a nice treat. A story that they have already told bar for bar in the MCU before. We're watching a regurgitated Winter Soldier story, but now everyone's nerfed. And the villain, I think, sucks. The villain is basically... Oh man, I don't want to get into spoilers. Villain's basically like, I got smart serum, so now I can calculate probability. Except, all of his probability calculations are wrong. And his probability calculations are so trash that he makes... This is kind of a minor spoiler, so... Spoiler warning. One of his calculations was, he hurt one of Captain America's friends. He framed him. And he thought, by doing so, there was an 89% chance that the new Captain America would give up. And it's like, brother, what the fuck are you talking about? You're poking the bear. Why would he give up when you just framed his friend? What probability calculations are you running? Like, this whole time, they hype him up as, like, the super smart guy. But he even says, not a single one of his plans really come to fruition, except in, like, loose pieces. But, like, he even says multiple times, like, you have surprised me. And it's like, no, why did he surprise you? He tracked your phone because you phone called the bad guy, and then you talked to Captain America on that phone. Obviously, he's going to track it. Why is he surprising you? That's like a bumbling fool could have known that that would be the next course of action. Not super mastermind. The movie is the third lowest rated MCU project on Rotten Tomatoes. The only projects lower are Eternal and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I saw that, and that's why I'm saying I don't think it's to that level. I think it is still better than the worst of the bunch, which isn't a compliment. I know that's not high praise, but it's not as bad as people are saying it is. It's just truly feels like a waste of time, and it really... Now we're going to get into a little spoiler territory. There's no actual consequences for anything at all. Like, like all of it feels like this was I know it went through 4 reshoots, and it feels like somewhere along the reshoots they forgot what they were even fucking doing. So you just get like a time waster. It's inherently worse because it's come off the back of a bunch of bad ones, so people's frustration is stacking. Yeah, I know, it's kind of like this avalanche effect, so it's like this fucking snowball where so many of these movies have just been lackluster that this one, I think for a lot of people, is like, okay, I'm fucking done. I get it. But it is not as bad as the worst. It's just not good either. Now I want to get into spoilers. This is fair warning. Fair warning. I'm going to get into some spoilers here, because there's some shit I really want to talk about with the movie. I'll give everyone a moment to acclimate to, you know, latency or whatever. Okay, now we're going into spoilers. I really fucking hate how extraordinarily lackluster it is when you put a superhero formula with people that are just people. So Red Hulk is a super villain that can only be equaled by a superhero, a point they even make. So, you can't fight him as a person. You have to resort to basically Naruto talk no jutsu. And I had a feeling this is what was going to happen. You can't fight him. You can barely do anything against him. So in order to beat him, you have to say calm down. That sucks. That is so underwhelming. So Captain America doesn't actually beat anybody except a throwaway side villain. So, like, the supervillain turns himself in, and that's the last we see of him. He's like, in order for my plan to work, since you've bested me in the other 2 places, kind of, I'm going to turn myself in. And he does. So he's gone. And then Harrison Ford gets real mad and goes Red Hulk. And at that point, I knew it was cooked. You're not fighting him. I thought maybe a weapon that they had or something, like Wakandan technology, because they were like really making a point about that. But no, it boils down to, remember your daughter. I know you want to change, so be the change you claim you want to be. And he goes, oh, and he shrinks back to old man. It's just so underwhelming, because it's a superhero movie. So you want, like, superhero shit to happen when you have this climactic fight, and you don't get it because it's people. So it just makes it so the only thing you can do is that. Did you like it when Black Widow did it with the Hulk? It was fine back then because you're still surrounded by things that make sense, like, oh, Hulk is going up against all of these other really superpowered people and shit. Like, it makes more sense in that context. And it's not like the climactic final moment. Like, it doesn't all build up to that. Post-credit scene was also a bit goofy. Full disclosure, I didn't stay for the post-credit scene. I just wanted to get out. I was so bored. And that was such a lackluster ending, I was just ready to go. I didn't see the post-credit scene, I don't know. The villain was like, I predict worlds will collide soon. Yeah. I'm not gonna spoil everything about the movie. I know I just talked about the ending. But I'm gonna try not to point out everything about the film, but yeah, that sounds like some fucking cringe for it. Who the fuck goes to a Marvel movie and doesn't stay for the post-credit? That's like 50% of even going to watch it. What is that mentality? What? Half the reason to go see a Marvel movie is for the 5 seconds at the very end where they say, and he will return, or worlds will collide. I can just look it up, man, and get the same effect. Red Hulk all over the marketing, no big fight. We're still in spoiler territory. I'm sure people that were avoiding spoilers are still out of this. No, man, like I said, Red Hulk, it's like actually just one sequence. Granted, the sequence is like 8 to 9 minutes, maybe. And it's cool. Like, I think that is the best part of the movie by far, that fight. Until the fight ends. Then it's, wow, does it go out with a whimper. Half of the Red Hulk fight is in the trailer. Not wrong. Legitimately, that guy, he's making a joke, but he's not wrong. Most of the big Red Hulk moments you see in the trailer. Almost the whole fight is there. And there's not any other. I'm somewhat optimistic for Fantastic Four, and I'm somewhat optimistic for Thunderbolts. But, as I predicted on stream a couple days ago, they set up a villain in Thunderbolts that is a villain meant for the best of superheroes. Not people. Not just guys. You know what I mean? Not just like human beings. So the only way I can see them, and you can clip this and mark this down, I'll be a fucking prophet with this. The only way I see them beating Void / Sentry is the good part of him. Sentry takes over, he's like, guys, I'm holding back Void. I'm opening my weak spot. Do it! And then they'll kill him like that. That's the only way. Because these villains that they're putting in these movies without a superhero to fight them cannot be beaten except, like in this movie, if you ask them to stop. You know what I mean? Or if someone intervenes like that and does, like, fucking Deus Ex Machina shit. No, done with spoilers. No more spoilers. I won't go much more into spoilers. Again, just not good. Not good, not nearly as bad as the worst in the bunch, though, of the MCU. If you're going to break the MCU movies into 4 tiers, great, good, mid, trash, this would be in mid. Just above trash. A Marvel crew member came forward and said everyone on the team knew the movie was going to be bad because production was chaotic and a lot of scenes were completely cut. Oh, that's another thing I wanted to mention. I don't know about the crew member thing you're talking about. The movie does feel like there was so much that was chopped out of it that there's a lot of points in there that feels like they forgot the connector. So, man, I already said we're done with spoilers. There's a character death that I'm pretty sure everybody on the entire team, including the actor, forgot happened. And yet, the way it was portrayed felt like it was going to be really important, but in the next scene after the character death, the guy goes and just tells Captain America the vital information anyway. The bad guy does.